Hello everyone, welcome to Scholar Minds Explorer series. Today the topic that I will address here is that of fractions. So the problem that has been put up on the board here is a typical one which you will see when you are addressing any problems related to this particular topic of fractions. I'll read this out for you. There are 240 people in an auditorium. 1/3 of them are men, 1/4 of them are women. We have to find out the number of kids. Now this one we will solve it using bar model method. Instead of going and doing it the typical fraction way, we'll actually try to visualize how this problem is placed and how we can arrive at the solution. So when I draw this in the bar model format, okay, this is my complete bar. This bar represents the total number of people in the auditorium, which is 240. And now first I will place the number of men that has been told to us in this problem, which is 1/3. Okay, so I'll divide this into 3 parts over here. Okay, so you can see this, these are the 3 parts. So essentially this area that you see is 1/3. Okay, and then this one represents the number of men out of this whole total bar. The rest has to be given to women and kids to arrive at the total number of people, that is 240. So I'll draw one more bar, which is this. Okay, I'll make this darker. Now, to show how you can place quarter, I'll first show half. Okay, and then I'll make half of that, and then I'll come here, I'll make this half of this. So these are actually 4 parts, okay, for the total. Now when you look at these two, you have to understand how do I go ahead and make them to equivalent parts. So when I say equivalent parts, it's actually that concept of LCM that we do, which is least common multiple. So over here we don't want to really get into the arithmetic part of going ahead and calculating the LCM, but how I'll show you over here is this particular box that you have. Okay, for this whole 240, this has been divided into 3 equal parts, whereas this has been divided into 4 equal parts. So because these have been divided into 4 parts, you go ahead and cut each of these into 4 equal parts. So over here this is 1 part, 2nd part, 3rd part and 4th part. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Same way you can go ahead and split this further. So you have 1 part, 2 part, 3 part and 4th part. Here 1 part, 2 part, 3 part and 4th part. Okay, so what you have done is, here you had 3 main parts. You divided each of those parts into 4 main parts because here you have 4 main parts. Okay, the same way to make this also equivalent, I will go ahead and divide these individual boxes, which are 4 of them in number, into 3 equal parts, each of them 3 equal parts. Okay, so what you can see is, see, it's approximately, because of my sketching, but it has to come in line with this. So here you have 3 equal parts. Okay, here again you have 3 equal parts, and then here you have this one, which is 3 equal parts. Okay, now this one you identified as the number of men, okay, in this total bar. Now if you want to identify the number of women, it is actually, what is that, quarter of them. So quarter means equivalent to 1, 2 and 3 parts, right? 3 out of 12. So if you go ahead, and now I'm just going to shade 1, 2 and 3 parts, that is this. Okay, so this represents my number of women. So essentially if you see, this bar is for number of men, this bar shows me the number of women, and if I have to arrive at how much is the number of kids, basically I'll just go ahead and say this one is for men and women. Okay, and what is left over here is, I'll just bring this. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So here I have if I may say, this is 5 parts out of 12. Okay, 5 parts out of 12 would be only kids, because we have already addressed the remaining, which includes men and women. Now let us step back and think, if you have 240 as the total of number of people, and this bar has been divided into 12 equal pieces, so 12 parts over here. So this essentially, each part that you are seeing here is equivalent to 20. So now if you want to arrive at the number of kids, it is nothing but 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So 5 parts of this bar actually represents the number of kids, which is 100. So that's how you can visualize exactly what is happening behind this problem. So I'll just reiterate quickly. This one bar, which represents the total population, in this case which is 240, the number of men, women and kids put together, has been represented here. Okay, so what you see in this fluorescent shade is that this is one part, second part and third part. Why I divided this into 3 equal parts is because men represented just 1/3 of this bar, and that's what you see in this pink shaded part, which is 1/3. Next, I draw an identical bar, and this time the representation of women is just quarter of the bar. So I take the same sized bar, I go and divide it. If you see this fluorescent bars over here, I go and divide this into 4 equal parts. So this is one part, second part, third and fourth part. Now comes the next level of understanding. How do you make these two bars look equivalent? So over here, this bar, which has total of 3 parts, I go and make it equivalent by looking at the bar below, which has 4 parts as its equivalent. So I divide my each sub part into 4 equal parts. Okay, equal is an important word here, because in fractions, unequal sizes you cannot equate. So here you have 4 equal parts, and so this all total of it arrives to 12 parts. The same way in this second bar, because I have 4 main parts, to make it equivalent to the one on the top, I divide each of these bars into 3 sub parts. So when I do this 3 sub parts for each of this, you will see that this also has 12 parts. Now when I superimpose the number of men and the number of women in total on this whole bar, that's why I drew this here. So you will see that what I have shaded here is essentially going to be the sum of men as well as women. Now what does that infer? The one which is left out is only the number of kids. So I go ahead and count. I see, okay, how many parts are left out for kids, and that comes out to be 5 parts out of this 12 total parts. Now I have been told, as per this problem, that 240 people exist in this auditorium. So I'll try to find out how many people in one part. So when I do 240 divided by 12, I get 20 people in one part, and with 5 parts given to children, 5 multiplied by 20 will give you 100. That's how we arrive at the solution to this problem. That is how many number of kids in this auditorium, which is 100.